Hi, welcome to Aren't You Crazy, the podcast that flips the script on the struggling artist paradigm.
We are your hosts, Tessie
and Erin Elizabeth Reed.
Hi, welcome to Aren't You Crazy?
Today we have a very special guest, Andi Cabello, is gonna share with us her experience about coming from the acting world into the therapy world. So welcome, Andi.
Yeah, welcome. Good to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. It's such a fun space to be able to talk about creativity and career paths and just kind of how wild a ride it's been.
So your case is interesting. It's a little bit opposite from what we normally see. We normally talk about people in a non-creative career who then seek creative outlets or switch gears to be a creative professional. And you did the reverse. Tell us about what sparked the decision for you to move from acting into being a therapist.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's sort of funny. I was thinking about it this morning, and I really feel that no matter what I do, that I am a creative. So even though I work in mental health, I'm still very creative, and I use a lot of my skills that I developed in my training as an actor in my work with people, right? Because at the end of the day, as a therapist, I feel like a lot of what I do is connecting with people, learning about their emotions, learning about how emotions are experienced, and telling stories and hearing people's stories and connecting with those stories, it just feels very close to my original purpose for becoming an actor. Do you want me to start at the beginning? Should I start there?
Yeah.
All right. So basically, I come from a really creative family. My mom's an artist, and my father, he works in tech, but he's very creative as well, right? Like he creates digital stuff. I'm not a techie person. And I first encountered acting when I was living in France. And so I started acting in French and just loved the theater. I loved the training that I received in Europe as an actor is very holistic, very body-centric training. And I trained in the UK as well and did a repertory theater, both for the London Fringe and the Edinburgh Fringe. And I loved that. And I wanted to do more, right? I wanted to make a career path out of acting, out of creating these stories, these characters, embodying these characters in like a physical sense, as well as an emotional sense. And so I thought, well, LA is the place where people go logically, right? Like that's the next step. And I'm very privileged and fortunate enough to have an American passport. So I was able to make that move without too much difficulty. And I got to LA and I was like, okay, let's make money as a creative. And that's where I started to kind of come across more and more reasons why I left the creative field. Because I was trying to, and I don't know if you've read Elizabeth Gilbert's book, Big Magic.
Yeah.
And I love the way she talks about how we creatives put pressure on their creativity to make money. And that's where it started to sort of ruin things for me, for lack of a better word. Yeah. Everything kind of started to go downhill because I had expectations, and I also tied like my self-concept to my creativity. So I was an actor, right? Like that was who I was. Therefore, if I failed to make money, is that I failed as a person. I needed to separate those things. It didn't feel very healthy to have all those things too connected for me, basically. So I worked a lot in behind the scenes, did some writing. I did wonderful collaborations. It's how I met Tessie. So I have so much love for a lot of the people I collaborated with and created with. But at the end of the day, I just felt like my original purpose, right? Like that connecting with emotions, connecting with people, telling stories, experiencing other people's stories was not at the center of what I was doing anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was about the hustle. It was about, trying all these jobs, trying to make ends meet. And I was really unhappy. I didn't like the people that I was encountering sometimes. They didn't have the same values as me, and it just brought me further away from that original purpose. And the pandemic hit and was a real wake-up call for me to kind of self-reflect and go, okay, what path am I on? Where do I see this path taking me? Is this taking me further away from myself? So I went back to school, got my master's degree, and started working as a therapist. And I was like, this is where I was meant to be. This is where I was meant to go. And one of the things that kind of helped put that puzzle piece together was an opportunity that Tessie brought me to, which was to work at the Expressive Therapies Summit. Tessie's just like kind of like a wizard in my life.
Yeah, listen,
I'm just going to make her cry on her own.
Tessie is a wizard, though. That's just a fact. Wow. Okay. So expressive.
Yeah. So working at the Expressive Therapy Summit also kind of put in this piece for me of like, therapy is creativity. So it was just like, oh, this career path that I'm starting on is really, really has so much potential to be creative, to be so many different things.
I'm curious if you would have found therapy as a career path if you hadn't been searching for a creative outlet first. Was therapy already in the back of your brain somewhere separately and you just returned to it? Or if it was a new idea that you discovered through walking your path as an actor first?
You know, it was a new idea. I would like to say that it was always in the back of my mind, but it really wasn't. You know, I did do like community theater, but I never felt like that was my calling. I think I was too young. I didn't quite realize the power that has. And I might have been too focused on myself and my own success at that point over the course of like becoming my own self. And then I realized like, okay, there's still something missing here. I had my own therapy and realized that was super powerful and changed my life. And so the pieces start to come together, but it was later in life. Yeah.
So when you were sharing about that like roller coaster where you were slowly going down the hill with your artistic path. I'm like,
felt like that.
I was thinking, what was it in particular that made you go through that decision?
You know, it's a combination of a lot of things, right, that added up over time. It's hard to put it down to one thing, right? But it was the combination of not making the work that I wanted to make, right? I wanted to be making something meaningful, something that I really emotionally connected with. And I wanted to work with people like that. You know, working with Tessie was a real joy, but when you're on a film set, there's more than just Tessie. As much as like, sometimes her and I would be like, no, let's just do us. You still need other people to make a movie. And sometimes values weren't always aligned. People kept saying, oh, you fit in this box. And I was like, no, I don't want to fit in a box. I want to play all sorts of roles. Like that's what the theater taught me. The theater taught me that I could transform. I could relate to people and connect with various different stories. And now you're telling me you have to play this one role and we're not going to pay you for it. You know, that was also the thing. There's actors work for free so much of the time.
Yeah.
Can I ask, from the moment when your dissatisfaction became an inescapable truth, shall we say, to the moment when you said, officially, I've found something else and I am actively stepping away. Do you know what that time frame was?
It was a long time. It took me, because I was, like I said before, it was like my identity was being an actor. Like I needed to take some time to separate those things. So Tessie recommended this book to me a long time ago. It's called If Women Rose Rooted by Sharon Blackie. And in my kind of most difficult time, I was listening to this book on repeat on my like hour and a half commute, which in and of itself is just soul sucking. So knowing that something wasn't right, that I needed to reconnect with nature, reconnect with a sense of myself, that I had lost myself somewhere along the way. But I financially didn't know how to quit my job and take that power on and say, like, I'm leaving this situation. And it was really hard. This is enough. Like, this is the straw that broke the camel's back, right? And I was just like, okay, I need to leave this job. I'll find a way, I'll deliver groceries, like whatever it takes. And that was kind of the changing point. And that happened like 2 months before the pandemic. Then I started rereading, re-listening to this book, If Women Rose Rooted. And I did not know, like I had not, like my brain didn't even pick up on the fact that the character in the book is a psychotherapist. She's a clinician. She works in mental health. And I just like didn't put 2 and 2 together. I was like, I need to connect with myself, da, 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 da. And like later on down the line, I was like, oh my God, I was listening to this story of this person, this woman working in mental health that wants to escape this like concrete jungle, reconnect with herself, reconnect with nature, and re-find her path in her career, and not actually hearing that she worked in mental health. And then I ended up working in mental health and like rereading it and going like, what? This was there all along. I was listening to this and connecting to this all along, but not hearing the message. Like what was going on? It was a long process, but then when it was happening, it happened so fast.
Mm-hmm.
It just clicked.
I can't recommend that book enough. I feel like that book talks about a certain disconnection between the people and the world and their own experience. And I feel that, and she talks about it as the wasteland. And it doesn't mean that you need to go, she doesn't say you don't need to go live in a cabin in the forest in the middle of nowhere and make potions, which I would love to do by like, honestly, and then put a camera and sell it. And then I'll be rich making potions in my cabin in the middle of nowhere.
Doesn't sound too bad.
That sounds fantastic. I'd totally be down.
Aren't you crazy? I am. Yes, I am. But she talks about like that wasteland in terms where you can't grow anything, where it's like a sterile ground, where you're so disconnected to yourself or to your ideas or to your authenticity. So what I need to find in my wasteland, maybe, is the alignment of how can I keep on telling stories in a way that might not be the way that everybody is going for, and in a way where I might need to just trust my gut for once and do my own thing. And trust that the creative process is going to lead me where I need to go, and not following all the little pieces of advice that the industry sets up on, that all those little boxes. I'll just focus on the creativity and the rest will come. And for a long time, I just forsaked the creativity. The creativity was the last thing in my box.
I totally understand that feeling. And I love that, like, yeah, she said the word, the wasteland, right? And it is the poverty of connection and creativity, right? And it, like you said, it's where your creativity is the last thing you consider, the last thing you nurture. So it's like, yeah, what feels authentic as well. Like a lot of it just feels like inauthentic. And I think that's what sucks the life out of people. Inauthenticity leads to mental health problems. Like it's super simple, but
Andi, I'm curious, what's the most gratifying part of what you do now in your life and in your work?
Oh, I feel like that's such a big question. There's so much of it that is so like gratifying. Yeah, watching people open up and feel like they can trust another human being. Honestly, it's really amazing.
How do you connect with your creative side now that you're doing this work, this therapeutic work? I know that it can be super creative, but how do you maintain your connection, your personal connection to your creativity?
Good question.
I've always enjoyed painting and things like that. So I leaned more into painting. I found kind of a community of like therapists that also like painting too. So that was really fun. It's sort of been very different. You know, it's less of the kind of creativity where you have to interact with people. So I found that the creativity that I was really craving was like solo creativity. So like the painting, like working in my garden, or even just like creating my space at home. Maybe it was like my cocoon stage of like just needing like to come back to me and what my creativity is at its core.
I work on my personal room and space like 3 times a week.
Yeah. Yeah, like reshuffle everything.
What can I change? Okay, let's move everything to the other side. And Ruth said like, don't move the bed. Don't move the bed. Don't do it again. I'm like, I really wanted to move the bed again. And he's like, nope, you can't.
My bed has one spot. It can't move. But I've got like a chandelier that I'm building with all sorts of like trinkets and plants and sparkles. And it's just like a fun little fairy moment with all sorts of little things on it. I'm like, oh, this is fun.
You're a very good painter and very good artist. Like I was telling Andi, like she's very good at like really giving shapes to things. And it sounds stupid because, you know, it's painting, right? You should give shape to things. But I am incapable of making anything that looks like something. If I draw an apple or something, it'll probably look like a baseball ball or something, like something that's not. And that is actually something. So no, probably no. It won't look just like a line. It doesn't work.
Well, my people are still stick figures, so I'm more of like a abstract kind of multi-layered just stuff.
I'm so excited about that chandelier.
Me too.
Oh, it's so inspiring.
Thanks, guys. I love the enthusiasm. I feel so excited to work on it now.
Yeah, I can't wait for you to like be able to place it in where you imagined placing it. I feel like that's something that sometimes I forget the power of just simply bringing something that you work on to your space just to give you company in your days.
Yeah.
Like something that you're like, oh, we actually did that.
Yeah.
With
yeah.
the...
Oh, Tessie did this.
Oh, I love it. Oh my God, guys. Who says you can't make things?
Aren't you crazy?
Yes.
Andi, thank you so much for talking with us today. And do you have any resources maybe that you would recommend to listeners?
I mean, yeah, I'm on Instagram. I have a website. You know, you can always connect with me there. And I provide a lot of like resources on social media as well. I mean, obviously, social media is not a replacement for therapy, but, you know, it's a place to kind of maybe get some education and, you know, start a conversation with somebody who has a similar interest.
Can you share with us the handle and your webpage?
My Instagram handle is Andi with an I_Cabello, CABELLO. And my website is andicabello.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you guys for providing this space and this awesome podcast.
Well, stay crazy out there.
Stay crazy.
Or in Andi's case, stay sane. Yeah. Stay not crazy.
But sane is not crazy, right? I was going to say stay zany, but it's the same thing.
Yeah,
instead of sane, saney, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Okay.
Get out.
Hey, I'm sure you love this episode. Before you go, here are 3 ways you can help us keep things crazy.
Just leave us a rating or share this episode so more people can access this content. Easy peasy, right?
Feeling ultra crazy?
Donate to the show by clicking the link provided in the podcast description or in our Instagram's bio.
I'm sure you will.
Stay crazy out there, y'all.
Stay crazy!